Hi all, it's Katie, and we're only 4 weeks away from the Midwest Arts Expo in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is making me think about packing and making me revisit the episodes we've recorded about conferences. If you're new to the industry, check out our How to Conference conversations in episode 45 and 91 for tips and tricks on preparing for a great conference experience. And everyone can revisit our reflections on conferences over the last 3 years in episode 102, We Love Conferences, and episode 119, APAP Recap 2025. As we head into conference season, the team wishes you the best of luck and reminds you to stay hydrated, wear comfy shoes, and bring a Tide pen. We'll see you soon at MAX.
Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hey everybody, welcome back to There's No Business Like. I'm Bryan Zelmer from Bardavon Presents, and I'm here with Katie.
Hi everyone, Katie Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates in Midland, Michigan.
And Josh.
Josh Benson rocking it out in Marion, Illinois at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center.
So you might notice that two of our colleagues are not with us today. Kevin is off in Scotland attending a certain festival there.
He's wearing a kilt with no underwear.
Probably. I could see that, and I don't want that in my mind. Thank you, Josh. We also are missing Danielle today, who is busy juggling, I hear. Is that correct?
Also wearing a kilt.
Yes, she's prepping for some events and back to school and. So.
In some undisclosed location. So the three of us today each brought some headlines, recent headlines about things that are happening within our industry that just we wanted to lift up and talk a little bit about. And so, Josh, why don't we start with you? What did you bring to us?
So I want to talk about the most recent announcement of the Kennedy Center honors. We all know at this point that President Trump placed himself essentially into the role of the chairman of the board for Kennedy Center. And he is now exerting control by his admission over the Kennedy Center honors. Also somewhat joking about giving himself an honor next year. I don't know how much of a joke that really is. But this year, the honorees are Sylvester Stallone, Gloria Gaynor, George Strait, Michael Crawford, and rock band Kiss. I don't think that there's any doubt that those are specifically picked to bolster his opinions of going against elitist and high art and culture. But at the same time, each of these artists have achieved tremendous things in their careers. So I don't know that they're necessarily not deserving, but he also in that announcement said that he vetoed a number of quote unquote wokesters that were to be nominated.
I'm afraid of what's going to happen publicly to these artists because I don't want it to be about why these artists shouldn't get it or should get it or what have you. My contention is really the process, the change in process, how artists used to be the people who voted for who deserved this award or was getting the award. And that's completely eliminated now and selected by a politician, which fundamentally I have issues with that, regardless who they are. And so this is pretty big news, and it follows a lot of other news that we've talked about regarding the Kennedy Center and the current administration. So it's not really a surprise. I don't think it probably is to anybody, but the biggest part that shocked me, I guess, I'm still shocked every once in a while, is the fact that he said he's going to be emceeing it. It's just so bizarre.
That ceremony is going to be 3.5 hours long.
With 5 minutes about each artist and all the rest about President Trump.
I mean, Josh, to your point, I agree that the artists themselves are deserving of this recognition. Honors, the Kennedy Center defines honors. They say that it recognizes and celebrates individuals whose unique artistic contributions have shaped our world. They have each had an impact on the rich tapestry of American life and culture through the performing arts. And each Kennedy Center honoree has a unique place in the fabric of our nation, and their influence has inspired audiences from all walks of life. And I think that the honorees from past years, if you look at the list, match that intention. Mm-hmm. And I would say that this list matches that intention as well. So I don't have a problem with that. But to Brian's point, the process, I will just say that as President Trump points at drag queens as the root of all evil in our country, he chose a band of men that perform on stage in makeup and in platform shoes.
There's the hot take that we need.
Do we not see the irony here?
Definitely. So on that note, with Alanis Morissette in our heads, let's move on to the next topic. I brought us a really tragic and sad story. And if you haven't heard, Jacob's Pillow, major mecca for dance, and especially the creation of new dance since I think the 1930s, had a very tragic accident. And the news is everywhere, but I found it originally from Playbill. It first caught my attention because the headline said that Jacob's Pillow cancels the 2025 summer season. And I was like, oh, what's going on there? And then I found out that the production manager, Kat Sirico, who has had a tremendous history, both as a dancer and as a production person with Jacob's Pillow, had an accidental death pushing a cart of risers that started to run away on a slope, and they tried to stop it, and it fell on them and crushed them. Yeah, it's just really sad. And accompanying this story, obviously, is the talk about safety in theater and the importance of safety. And this is an individual, again, who has a tremendous history of always putting safety first and just had a momentary lapse in judgment. And that can happen to any of us. And honest, if I'm being completely honest, I actually had the exact same thing happen to me when I was at Sussex County Community College. And I think that's why this story hit me so hard, because I had literally a cart of risers that I was pushing for my outdoor concert series from my theater down to the grassy knoll where we always had our concerts, and it started to run away from me. And at first I tried to stop it and I couldn't, and then it took off and it fell. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, if I did the same thing that Kat did, I could have had the same thing happen to me. I always say I put safety first, and it's always the top of the list, the very first thing I look at. And yet that could have happened to me too. So I was really disheartened when I saw in IATSE, it was a specific, and I'm not going to name the local or the name of the podcast, but there's a group of IATSE people that have a podcast. And the day this news came out, they were announcing how that's why Jacob's Pillow needs to have IATSE workers working there. And I just thought it was really distasteful. It was very offensive, I found, to use this tragedy to try to insert the union in Jacob's Pillow. So anyway, I've talked a lot. I'll give you guys a chance to respond, but it just was a very touching and sad story that I came across.
I think there's multiple levels of tragedy to this. Any new work that was still slotted for the season is not going to be seen for the remainder of the season, is not going to be seen at this point. In our venue, I am always the person who's preaching safety over and over and over again, yet I'm the one who's missing 2 fingers from an accident on our loading dock. It's very easy for it to happen. It's just such a sad thing for the dance industry as a whole, for this to happen at such a celebrated venue and to lose the remainder of the season. But at the same time, I think they did the right thing. I think that Jacob's Pillow stepped up in a way to respect what happened and to respect the person that was involved by saying, artistically, we're not going to move forward because of this tragedy. And there are so many instances where somebody gets hurt and, somebody else gets thrown into the position and you move forward and you treat it like a corporation as opposed to the importance that person had to that festival.
So I just want to make sure we also express our condolences to Kat's loved ones and friends and coworkers and the whole Jacob's Pillow family, because this sort of accident can happen in any of our venues. We work in a dangerous industry, and our hearts go out to everyone that's been affected by Kat's death. I mean, I think it has sent ripples through the industry, the industry nationwide. And so I know a lot of people are thinking about them and have expressed their condolences as well. I mean, honestly, it takes me back to positions I've been in where I also could have fallen off a 35-foot extension ladder where I was not allowed to buy a safety harness to hang in focus lights by my venue. I had to climb on the roof at this particular venue and change letters on the marquee sign, and could have fallen 15, 20 feet onto a concrete set of stairs below and been seriously injured or killed. Like, these are things that aren't out of the norm for some venues that don't take safety seriously. I think back to those sorts of instances, and I know we train people and I know we emphasize it over and over and over again, and we can take every precaution in the world. Things can still happen. Doesn't mean we shouldn't take those precautions, however, in a whole host of ways. So not only, on the job safety for our employees, for our performers, that sort of thing, but I think we also need to think about venue safety in broader terms as well. Last year, there was a conversation at Midwest Arts Expo about venue security and active shooter drills and things like that, a whole conversation that sort of sprang up in a session because patrons were upset about being required to carry clear bags into a venue for safety. And venues were asking, like, do we go with what our patrons say, or do we instill these rules out of concern for their safety? And there was a debate happening. And I literally, walking into that session, had gotten a notification on my phone that my son's school had been locked down due to a potential active shooter situation. Mm-hmm. Right. So this is not something that we can afford to mess around with in general, right? Whether it's personal safety or patron safety, venue safety, it's something we really need to be proactive about instead of being reactive to.
Katie, since we're on you brought us an article. What is it about?
Yes. So NPR and many other news outlets have recently reported that the Gallup poll just released a new study showing that alcohol consumption in the United States is at its lowest level ever since 1939, when they first started studying alcohol consumption patterns. And in particular, Gen Z, our youngest consumers, are drinking less than adults ages 35 and above. And there's a host of reasons for this trend. Lifestyle and health concerns, pointing to the cost of alcohol as one reason that people are drinking less. And also the way that we are gathering as friend groups, as families, is shifting over time, right? So we're not gathering at bars and restaurants as much anymore if we're gathering at all. So we've seen, particularly since the pandemic, people are getting together less, and hence we're drinking less alcohol. So this is not a surprising trend to me. I've been following this for at least the last year or so, because all signs and consumer models have been pointing to less alcohol sales in general. So my question is, what are we going to do about this when it comes to our concession sales and our fundraisers? Because so much of what we do is alcohol centric. You have a wine wall where you get to pull a bottle of wine, for a ticket at a fundraiser, or you have a wine tasting or a beer brewing event that goes along with your show. And obviously, we've got alcoholic beverages at our concession stands as well. So how are we going to respond to that as an industry if more than 50% of American adults are not drinking?
Yeah, Katie, this is something that you and I talked about offline too, and it's a big trend that's happening for sure with that younger audience. And as they become the older audience and the primary audience, it's something we do need to pay attention to. We had a recent show with Father John Misty, and it was one of our biggest bar sales ever, even though alcohol was hardly served that time. We had a young millennial and Gen Z audience, primarily sold out show. And they were buying non-alcoholic beers, non-alcoholic cocktails, kombucha, and all these other types of drinks. But yeah, they weren't buying the alcohol. And I think your point to especially the fundraising part of it, how we do wine tastings and other types of alcohol-centric ideas or themes. We're going to have to rethink that as this audience becomes more and more important to becoming tomorrow's sponsors and donors and those sorts of things.
And it's not just Gen Z, it's older patrons as well are drinking less too. So it's across the board.
Although I'm not seeing that here. The older patrons are still certainly buying plenty of alcohol.
You're in upstate New York.
We have a lot to drink about here.
I think that we just need to issue a challenge to our listeners. We need to take up the slack here, increase our alcohol consumption. I'm joking. I've actually been drinking less this summer myself. I honestly started doing it for health reasons as well, just to feel better the next morning. And what was formerly 2 whiskey cocktails a night for me, I think I may have had one nighttime, nightcap cocktail in the last 3 months. And so for myself, it's been a changing trend, which I'm sure a number of people will find as a surprise, but it's something that I don't find surprising at all. For fundraisers, I mean, we have to adapt and we have to change and we have to grow. Like the stuffy black tie gala has been out of date for a while for a lot of us, as our overall culture has changed with more casual attire and less formal attire in general. With all of our attire as a culture being more casual, that's something that we've already had to adapt to with fundraising. And so it's just a different trend that we'll have to adapt to. But adapt and change is paramount to all of our success in every way.
Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, I've been following this trend for a while. The podcast, The Sporkful, which is one of my favorite podcasts, beside our own, of course, has had a couple of great episodes in the last year about this trend, the consumer trend of just buying more non-alcoholic beverages, but also like what does sobriety mean in this day and age and that sort of thing. So I highly recommend going and checking out The Sporkful. It's just a delightful podcast in general, but they've had some really great episodes on this topic, which I think would help inform our thinking and help us better understand our options in terms of what people are looking for and what we could be serving at our fundraisers, at our concession stands, et cetera, et cetera.
Katie, speaking of podcasts, why don't you give us your last bit of news? It's not really an article, but the two football players and a certain announcement that happened recently.
I would say we were in the group chat the other night talking about the Kelsey Brothers podcast and Taylor Swift making her appearance and announcing her new album. And we're all Swifties at heart, even maybe secretly here on the pod.
I'm no hate to her, but I'm not a Swiftie.
Not secretly, but I'm totally a Swiftie.
Bryan, I'm disappointed in you. But we were just in the group chat the other night and, talking to each other and sending memes back and forth. And I just thought, like, in a world that feels so heavy and so dark right now and is so challenging, like, that was a great moment. The Kelsey brothers are like kind of a bright shining light for role models for masculinity right now. I love a T Swift announcement. It was a really fun conversation. It generated like a ton of excitement online that was like mostly positive, which is great to see in this moment. So yeah, we're loving our Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce situation right now over here.
I'm not a Swiftie, but I do totally admire what she's done. And I think she's an amazing business person and obviously has a huge following and has built such a big fan base that just adore her. So I respect everything that she's done. I'm just not, it's just not my cup of tea, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be.
I think Josh said 1.4 million people tuned in to watch that live. And like in a time when we have like no monoculture at all, to get 1 million people to do anything at the same time is a pretty amazing feat. So, and for it to be like really positive is great.
Yeah.
I think that's record viewing for a live podcast on YouTube within a certain time frame.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
So kudos to them. Again, no hate. It's just I think it's phenomenal what they're doing, and I can respect.
She's
that.
my favorite football personality currently.
I would say mine too. I don't watch very much sports ball, but I'm here for it.
Thank you, Katie. And Josh, you have another article that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this article dropped on August 14th. Broadway theaters light up with custom marquees opposing a Times Square casino. The Caesars Entertainment Group is going to purchase the building that the Minskoff Theater is in, which is Lion King currently, and has been for a very, very long time. And they are going to convert parts of it from being an office building to being a casino. And they still plan to keep a Broadway theater in there. They have not said whether Lion King will stay or not as part of that, but it's interesting to me that, like, right now, the Actors Equity and American Federation of Musicians, Local 802, have both voiced support for the casino. And at the same time, the Broadway League, Broadway Cares, Entertainment Community Fund, Theater Development Fund, IATSE, Designers Union, and the Schubert Organization have all voiced opposition to the purchase of this building.
Yeah, plus like 28 other organizations that are standing in opposition to that.
16 Broadway theaters put No Times Square Casino graphics onto their marquees on August 13th. And this is part of an ongoing protest against the casino coming in. Their general reasoning is that it will create too much traffic. It will create crime. They're saying it will create too much foot traffic in Times Square, and that it will create an opportunity for more crime in the downtown area.
And potentially take business away from the Broadway theaters and the other businesses that are in the Times Square area.
I personally don't agree with all of their arguments. I think some of them are a stretch. But the thing I do agree with them in the article that they mentioned is that they're not against a casino, which is funny because a lot of their arguments are like anti-casino. But then they say they're not against the casino. They're just against its location, that they're actually in favor of a casino in New York, just not in Times Square. And Their reasoning for that, they said, because there's never been casinos here. And if you do a search about casinos in Times Square, you'll get, yes, there's never been casinos in Times Square. But then if you dig further, you find out that actually gambling dens, which is what they were known then, were actually predating any of the theaters in Times Square. And it was actually, Times Square was a place to go for all your vices. So there was a lot of that actually is part of the history of Times Square. So now, I'm not saying I'm in favor of it. I think Times Square is the wrong location. So I do agree with that, but I can't agree with everything that all of their arguments, because I personally don't see the correlation between crime and casinos in that regard. Casinos actually tend to have a lot more security and work with the local police, and they tend to be less crime areas. So I don't see a strength in that argument. And also taking away business, the people that are coming for the casino may decide while they're there, hey, let's see a Broadway show. Whereas they're going to casinos where casinos are right now, where there's no Broadway show. So if anything, it might help Broadway shows. I don't see how it could hurt it. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that show up and just go to the casino, but they were going to do that wherever the casino is. It doesn't mean that it's hurting Broadway show. But Josh, you kind of laughed off how busy the foot traffic already is, and how is it good? It can make it worse. It can make it a lot worse, and it's already bad, I think, is what made it funny. So that's another reason why I don't think Times Square is the best place for it.
The first article that I had read on this issue kind of alluded that they may eliminate the theater as part of the casino development, but in this article from Playbill, it states that part of those plans is to have a Broadway theater. I also think that it's interesting that the split between who supports it and who doesn't, being the Broadway League and so many not supporting it, but then having Actors Equity and the Federation of Musicians both vocally in favor of it. That's an interesting split to me.
And it has not been approved yet. It is still in the development and approval
right.
phase. So nothing is set in stone when it comes to this potential development. It all depends on how it is developed, how it is marketed. What is it going to give back to the community? If this were like a nonprofit casino that was going to give all of its profits to like art, the arts sector in New York City, hell yeah, let's go for it. But like, of course, that's not going to be the case. But are they going to pay people a fair wage? What's the footprint it's going to take in that building? Is it going to displace a Broadway theater and that show and all of those jobs and so on and so forth? What about the other businesses that are in that building currently? Are they filling empty floors that, aren't being used right now, and they're going to put it to use and create more jobs? I think it's all in the execution of it, how it's going to impact the people who currently live and work in that area. If they're going to be giving back a lot and making different types of investments that could make Times Square better, then let's talk about it. If not, then that's a different conversation.
There is one note in the article that says that Caesar's Palace Times Square has promised to invest $10 million in a New York coalition of legacy theaters of color fund.
And the other thing that isn't mentioned in the article, but I know firsthand because I'm a beneficiary of it at my current organization, is that all casinos throughout New York State are, by law, a percentage of their income goes towards funding theaters throughout the state. And we get a significant part of our budget from that funding from casinos that are in New York State. I'm definitely in favor of a casino in New York City, because that just means more funding to help us support the arts in communities throughout New York State. And of course, I know schools benefit from it as well.
It says that they are, there's 3 licenses for casinos to go in the 5 boroughs. And they have 8 casinos that have currently applied for those 3 licenses. So they're going to happen no matter what in the greater New York area.
Casinos in New York are going to happen. It's just a matter of which ones the New York State Gaming Commission approves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what location. So yeah, the Times Square thing is the contention, I think, on everybody's part, because again, even the people opposing it say they're not against the casino. They're against the location that they're proposing. So
do an environmental impact study. Let's say the environmental impact study and see what it truly would look like.
So while we're talking about Broadway, I'm going to bring my last headline is actually a double header from Polestar. And I'll start with the Broadway part of it. It listed the over 30 new productions, Broadway productions that are slated to open during this season, the 2025-26 season. The rest of this year, which is more than half over, there are 15 new shows opening on Broadway. And I'm most excited about the return of Art with Bobby Cannavale, James Gordon, and Neil Patrick Harris. I love that show and I love those actors. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm a huge Ragtime fan, and that's coming to Lincoln Center. And I can't wait to see this new version of it because I love that musical. That's where I was introduced to Audra McDonald. And, it's an incredible musical. So along with a whole list of others, it's really exciting to see, all of this new stuff coming in. The other part of the articles in Polestar that I was looking at was a little bit humorous. John Stamos, Uncle Jesse, if you didn't know, has been touring around and playing drums for the Beach Boys. And he's had this ongoing for years now, kind of tongue-in-cheek battle with Riot Fest in Chicago, kind of throwing shade at them over the years. And this year, he's agreed to play a date with the Beach Boys at Riot Fest if certain conditions are met. And the conditions are hilarious, but the festival has responded saying that they're looking forward to it and are going to try to meet all of his demands. And just to give you an idea, some of the demands are the executive director of the festival has to get a tattoo of John Stamos on him someplace. And the festival has to include a John Stamos lookalike contest.
Yes. This is what I need in my life is like 20 John Stamoses.
A little humor there, in the news as well. It's always good to balance things out. So
yeah, and John Stamos has been in the news recently. He stepped in for Josh Gad in the production of Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hollywood Bowl just a few weeks ago as King Herod.
Oh, awesome! I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently John Stamos is having a little bit of a moment right now.
So that's our news for this week, and we just wanted to bounce around some things. And I hope you're all doing well. We'd love to hear if you have a different take on anything we talked about today. Please share it on our socials or send us a message. And so we'll leave it there, and we hope you tune in next week for There's No Business Like.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Bryan Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
And Kevin today is off in Scotland doing some sort of festival there. You may have heard of it. And then Danielle, I'm not sure, where's Danielle today? Do you guys know?
Danielle is juggling 12 balls currently. So she's got a lot going on, including prepping for some events at her center. No, I can't say that.
Oh, yes, you can say that.
That is a lot. We'll wrap it up. What do you guys think? Is that okay?
I think wrapping it up is always a good idea.
You don't want to talk about that? You don't want to add that in? I can
no,
insert
you were
it.
trying to do like a highlight there at the end, and I didn't want to crush your highlight.
Bring us down.
So no, I don't.
Josh is bringing the hammer. Boom.
But I like, you were like, hey, on a positive note, and I was like, I'm not going to crush this.
Okay.
That's funny.